Sam, can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
Oh, okay. I have to leave one of the screens on. So I guess it's pretty much free flow today, but each person try to not to speak more than 3 minutes to get started, so so we can go in 3 rounds of sorts, and then we'll ask the audience to ask questions, and probably we can have up to 5 questions to be raised. I just introduced you as some sort of accidental activist too, but you, like me, we're in a regulated environment back in Hong Kong. You in the legal field, I'm in finance, and then you stop an undercover police from hitting an activist, and then a lot of people know about the story. You went to Hong Kong prison for a few months, and then right now you're back to the U.S. As an activist focusing on Hong Kong human rights issues. So today's topic is on 抗衡中共滲透, counteract with CCP's infiltration. You, Sam, appear in Congress testifying about what's going on in Hong Kong. Maybe I'll just pass the mic to you, Sam.
Sure. And so first, I'm really happy to be here, and thank you to Ed and to Fiona for all the amazing work you guys have done to put this together. I wish I could be there in person, and I hope to, those of you I haven't met, I hope to meet you in DC or in Toronto sometime soon. But I'm glad to be here by video. So, you know, as Ed said, you know, I was involved in the protest movement, but sort of my move from private to full-time activism was really due to what happened to me and going to prison. And I've been working on that here until recently, a fellow at the Georgetown Center for Asian Law, while continuing to write on sort of, you know, a bunch of Hong Kong related issues on my Substack, samuelbigot.substack.com, as well as doing sort of policy work here and trying to pass legislation. Some of that legislation is about sort of infiltration, and how to sort of protect people abroad in particular. You know, I think on the question of you know, CCP infiltration, I see really 3, you know, related but separate issues that we all have to be thinking about and worrying about. One is CCP is trying to influence politicians, and you know, Canada is the epicenter of that. I think the whole world has been watching it with what's been going down in Canada and going down in sort of the political situation there with both major parties. Second is influence on the public. This is, you know, disinformation, that China is getting better and better. It's manipulating public opinion without anybody even knowing that it's China doing it. And third, which maybe we talk about more and that I deal with more, is transnational repression, something that we all have to worry about. Who around us might be reporting back, who might be trying to intimidate those of you who are doing activism and advocating for a freer Hong Kong, a freer China, a freer Taiwan. And all of those are sort of the, you know, the triumvirate, I think, of CCP's infiltration efforts abroad. On, you know, influence on politicians, I think, you know, that's so relevant to Canada. And I think there's an important lesson there, right? That the CCP isn't just trying to infiltrate one party or another. They're going after everybody. They might make more headway with certain parties or certain types of officials, but they will, anywhere that they see an opening, they're going to try to get into it, whether it's conservatives, whether it's liberals, whether it's Democrats, whether it's Republicans, and they can make progress on that. You know, I think one thing that we should be advocating hard for is more transparency. As we've seen in Canada, a lot of this is kind of falling down for the CCP because of the hard work of media in collecting this information. We need to make it easier for media to access information on donors, detailed information on who's attending donor events, who's giving money, who the ultimate source of that money is. On the influence on the public, this is a really tough one, right? Everyone has seen disinformation on social media. This again targets people on the left, people on the right, to try to sort of soften the edges and convince people on things like the Uyghurs and Hong Kong by using accounts that are supposedly private to sort of manipulate opinion. On that, I think we really need to be pushing, and we are pushing here in the United States. It's a bipartisan effort, bipartisan support, more regulation around social media. We have to be careful. We don't want to stop free speech. We don't want to limit people on what they can say when they're genuinely making statements. But we need social media doing a better job of finding out, where state actors are manipulating people. We need to be pushing to ensure that there's more transparency in how that's done. And then related to that is on elections, right? That's the most critical of all. We need, one thing we've been pushing here, and I think should be pushed in Canada as well, is governments need to send a message to China and to Russia, for that matter, that we know you're doing disinformation on social media, we're countering that, but there's a line you can't cross on elections, right? You cannot mess with our elections. You cannot manipulate opinion on candidates. And we need to make sure that there are strong consequences for that, serious sanctions. And that message needs to be made in advance, that if you mess with our elections from abroad, that you will be punished for it. And I don't think that message has been made strong enough by politicians in any country. I think the US and both parties have been trying to work on that to some extent, but there's a lot of sort of domestic politics involved. And finally, transnational repression. The U.S., I think, has done the best job on this. These are situations, I had a situation where somebody moved directly from mainland China onto the floor of my apartment building, followed me around, tried to make friends, asked a lot of questions about the work I was doing. Was that person a foreign agent? I don't really know. But that's the kind of thing that we actually do need to be reporting. There was at the Hong Kong summit here in DC a few weeks ago, there were FBI agents from the US Transnational Repression Department that have been focusing on that. And what they told us was, they really encouraged us, even if you're not sure, give us the information, give us the data points so that we can kind of detect these trends. So I think the biggest thing that we can do on that front is if there's somebody who seems like they're being a little suspicious, we don't want to be going after people on witch hunts. But be honest, get in touch with officials that are dealing with this in your country, and kind of say, I don't know exactly what's going on here, but this person is acting suspiciously, asking some strange questions. So I just want to make sure you know about it. And that way they can take more and more information, and they can try to figure out exactly how China is trying to suppress people. We know that they're doing it through bounties. We know that they're doing it through the police stations, but there are other ways, and there are quieter ways. And it's something that we all have to worry about and all have to think about how to protect ourselves on that. So I'll stop there and turn it over.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sam. Can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
Okay, good. 嗱，咁我想講少少啦，就頭先Sam 都講咗好多，就係如果特別係即係啲滲透去到選舉嗰度咧，就有個好嚴重嘅後果喺美國。咁其實喺加拿大咧都係有同一個咁嘅問題，咁就不如我接去加拿大先啦，好唔好啊？加拿大有好多滲透，咁我請阿吳溫溫博士咧就講啊，咁Winnie 會用英文比較多啲，咁少少中文再總結啦，好唔好
？OK， 或者我講咗少少中文先啦，咁就全部英文講。其實中共嘅滲透，我諗可以係無孔不入，而且好細緻嘅。我哋自己嘅經驗咧，就係其實係由8964民嗰陣時就開始噶啦。佢哋即係因為我哋64發生之後，我哋即刻同市政府同聯邦政府就交涉，就話即係應該斷絕所有 家中嘅 twinning 嗰啲姊妹城市嗰啲動作啊，其他嘢，同埋即係俾聯邦政府又收咗5000個嗰陣時流難喺多倫多或者加拿大嘅即係海外學者同埋學生嘅。咁所以即係呢個係我哋自己睇法，就係覺得基本上佢喺媒體喺華人社區同埋唔單止係華人社區，同埋學術界啊、商界啊、政界啊，都係一路係滲透。而家咧就係變本加厲。Okay. I'm going to talk about, I guess the focus here is on counter strategies. So I just want to set the frame is that CCP, as Sam has mentioned earlier, actually used the United Front, work, 統戰部, to stifle criticism, infiltrate foreign politicians, universities, multinational corporations. With the President Xi Jinping's new appointment, UFWB, United Front, actually have hired 40,000 new staff. China has set up hundreds of proxy associations in Canada. Many of them are empty shells in Chinese Canadian communities to influence and interference, right? In December 2021, CSIS had a report saying how CCP Beijing is using 3 color-coded political interference tactics. And I'm sure you know what's go for? Money, the bribe, right? And then the final one is yellow, which CSIS would refer to as honeypot, right? How CCP employs sexual seductions to compromise a target. So those are the strategies. And I guess what Jenny Kwan, the MP Jenny Kwan's and MP from Vancouver East, and MP Michael Chong, conservative foreign affairs critics from Ontario here, they have been the targets of Beijing government, and CSIS refer them as evergreen targets. So that's part of, and then you also have, we all know about the police stations that China has set up in the provinces of British Columbia, Ontario, and Quebec, right? And it's only until recently they are being shut down by RCMP only in the last 2 months ago. And so these police stations, who knows where else they might be located, right? They haven't been said anything yet. So I just want to add on a couple of things. It's in terms of our strategies, TADC, along with a whole lot of other human rights groups in Canada, we form, TADC is a founding member of the Amnesty International-led human rights coalition on human rights in China. And we publish report to highlight and demonstrate the incidents upon incidents of harassment and threats imposed by Chinese CCP friendly agents, quote unquote. We have also worked beyond with the broader community. And one of the cases that you probably, very few people might be aware, and a more blatant example is Xinyi. It's a large China-owned auto glass manufacturer who wants to set up a huge manufacturing plant in Stratford, which is in southern Ontario, about 2 hours away from Toronto. So Xinyi has actually been chased out of Guelph, another smaller town. And then they moved to Stratford, trying to set up these auto glass plants. And as you know, when you set up a glass plant, it takes a lot of water. It has severe environmental impact. And so unbeknown to this local community, Xinyi actually used their lobbyists who were also employee of city of Stratford and so they were able to circumvent the community consultations, the environmental impact study, and went straight to the Premier of Ontario, our Premier Ford, and secure a minister zoning permit to get them to start building. Then, so when the community found out, they start raising and protest and uproar, and then they were accused by these Chinese-owned companies and their operators, saying as if they accuse them of being racist and xenophobic. The usual playbook that CCP use all the time. So what we end up doing is working with the local environmental groups to highlight, the risk of these potential partnership where the company can actually use all the data and disclose and share with CCP. And then, so at the 2022's elections, the community were able to vote down this Xinyi project. And so they are now forever gone from the community. I mean, what we're seeing is what China, as CCP is doing through their United Front work, it's using villages to circle the urban center, and then using that tactic to make sure that they are going to keep on influencing and having more politicians, Canadian politicians, in their pocket, right? And we have seen it, what's happening in Markham area, where you have the deputy mayor actually has been under investigations for his close connections. I won't say anymore with CCP. And so what we have been doing is trying to be as vigilant as possible, do the public education, do the coalition building with Uyghurs, Tibetans, and all the other groups. Now I've been approached by Belarus groups to expose what Russia is doing. And I think these are connections that we can forge and maintain and expose the insidious plans and the scheme of CCP. Last but not the least is what we have also launched across Canada is along with our counterparts in Vancouver and Calgary, to launch a foreign agent registry e-petitions. George and Leanne are at the back. We are encouraging people to sign the House of Commons petitions in saying, this is one of the, it's not the only way, but it's one of the strategies to curb the rampant influences, infiltrations, and interference of CCP. If we don't start doing something now, Australia, the UK's, and United States have already got these foreign registry, agent registry legislation in place. It's time for Canada, as part of the 5G country, to follow suit, and sooner rather than later, before get any stalling done. Definitely there are, this year is the 100th anniversary of the Chinese Exclusion Act. So some members of the community, and particularly some senators that have been appointed, have used this as saying, because of the racism, we shouldn't go forth with the foreign agent registry. And to me, I think these are comparing apple to oranges, two different issues here. Anti-racism, anti-Asian racism is a systemic issue that we will continue to fight on a long-term basis. But foreign agent registry it's one strategy that can safeguard our Canadian democracy, our Canadian security, and last but not least, our Canadian freedom of speech and freedom of movement. Thank you.
Well, actually, our Trudeau government has been pretty weak in terms of stopping infiltration. I don't know, just half jokingly, just want to ask the audience, how many of you have been to the so-called foreign Chinese police station in Scarborough that looks like 71, right, with a 20 candid cameras? It's more like a touristy thing right now. And if you haven't been to one of those, you can contact our dear Fiona Yellow over there. She is organizing a tour. 成日去 OK， 咁就或者龚小夏博士咧就喺 Washington DC 就早幾日之前咧就上咗嚟。咁今日咧我哋就講中共滲透啦。就平時你喺你嘅節目啦，咁間中我哋都做下節目啦，就好少講滲透。滲透其實呢樣嘢有咗 N 咁多年嚇。咁頭先吳温温博士又講阿 Winnie 講即係總之幾樣嘢啦，酒色財氣幾樣嘢都係我哋五顏六色。我哋有個外交部長都中咗招，舊時喺溫哥華㗎，係嘛？姓陳我記得，但依家唔講全名啦。OK， 不如我交個咪俾龚小夏。
All right, I guess I speak in Cantonese if you don't mind. And sorry, Sam. 我講翻廣東話啫，成日講到亂晒龍。你哋講加拿大啲滲透咧，即係我從美國過嚟，同美國啲滲透相比咧，就真係即係中國人點講小巫見大巫啊！真係喺美國喺華盛頓咁多年咧，我一直睇咗各級政府即係。特別係華盛頓政府點樣俾中共滲透嘅？我自己大陸人啦，我原來大陸即係話我大陸啲反革命嚟嘅，所以大陸啲監犯出嚟嘅，所以咧我哋從細睇住即係成個中國政府嗰套滲透好犀利。嗰一套即係佢控制人，成個共產主義佢個呢個主義本身佢嘅基礎就係控制人，同你嘅頭腦控制到你嘅行為，控制呢一切行動，佢呢套咧做到可以話爐火純青所以等中國開門之後咧，佢哋將呢一套放咗喺西方度咧係特別有用嘅，真係我喺華盛頓我見到有時幾感慨㗎，即係你話喺大陸咧一睇啲村長啲村長鎮長嗰啲咩細嘅市長一貪污成個億嘅即係大陸嗰時，即係大陸裏頭啲人同我講佢話即係中國政府從來冇諗到美國啲政客咁平到咩地步？10萬蚊好大件事㗎啦，係10萬蚊好大件事㗎啦。即係喺華盛頓講下嗰啲基本上嗰啲你如果同人捐款，你捐到 maximum 比如而家今年係一個眾議員啦，你聯邦選舉可以捐到3300蚊，你揾個議員見幾多次傾幾多冇問題嘅。咁咧，如果係即係你有啲捐多幾次捐多幾年成一紮人咧，佢哋叫華盛頓叫做美國叫做 bundler。比如話你啦，Ed Ed 話好啦，我同你做個募捐啦，我下邊有100個人同你捐，每人捐你1000蚊，10萬蚊，好大件事嘅。大家記唔記得嗰時 L 哥即係克林頓食 L 哥嗰時咪11萬蚊咧，全部係大陸過嚟㗎啦。咁即係因為我自己喺2009年競選過，我就真係見到咧嗰時啲華人社區咧，大使館係一沓錢俾出嚟㗎。有一個華人嘅老闆同我講，佢話大使館4000蚊現金俾佢，佢係公民嚟㗎嘛，就捐去俾嗰啲州長候選人。所以後尾即係話。特別係有咗生意有咗生意之後咧，大陸嗰啲更加犀利。有一次我唔講名啦，講名大家都知邊個我係一個共和黨嘅大佬，即係我而家唔係呢個唔係一個黨嘅問題，講2個黨嘅問題。 我喺個共和黨大佬屋企食飯啦，咁啱對面坐個人，佢一睇一張名片遞俾我，我就問佢啦，我話喂，你係唔係就係邊位？嗱，我而家唔講，你大家記唔記得中興啊 CTC 曾經俾佢哋即係美國要制裁啦 ，Trump 政府要制裁啦，制裁咗2日之後又唔制裁咯喎，你知唔知140萬蚊買咗呢個人共和黨嘅人2個鐘頭入白宮做咗呢件事情之後咧，白宮取消咗140萬美金。你諗下呢啲錢係點樣嘅錢啊？我哋喺華盛頓見到咧，嗰啲嚟自中國嘅錢啊，度度都講緊中國生意。即係嗰時我去嗱，而家講緊小布什政府、奧巴馬政府，即係全部有啲人啦嚇。你同啲人華盛頓嗰啲上邊啲 party， 你走去開下 party 傾下，佢好快就問你喂，中國你有咩關係啊？你知唔知道可以做乜嘢啊？永遠就係咁，所以成個華盛頓真係俾人滲透咗嘅。咁即係呢種滲透咧，亦係佢有好多透過公民團體嚟滲透嘅。咁呢個滲透嘅做法就基本上係即係有一班人咁啦，咁大家聚埋一齊，咁你都唔知啲錢邊度嚟嘅。咁佢哋去買政客，咁佢問我點樣去對付咧？咁我哋亦都用公民嘅方式對付嘅。就我哋又有啲人，大家即係有一條啊，好多嘢。我叫好多中國人簽名嗰啲嘢咧，人哋唔信，話簽個名有鬼用咩？好有用噶！你如果一個議員咧又接到一個2000人一封簽名一封信咧，佢一定聽你講啲嘢，佢一定罩記。因為呢件事情媒體亦都有報導。咁我再啱，即係媒體嘅滲透又係好犀利㗎，真係好犀利。即係我可以同你數下幾多去中國即係。華盛頓郵報、紐約時報、華爾街日報駐中國嘅記者，駐完中國之後留喺中國做大生意嘅，真係好多。所以咧，成個媒體嘅滲透，包括我哋以前嘅老闆嗱，我喺美國之音嘅時候咧，我喺美國我個老闆嘅老公喺中國有成億生意嘅收入。咁犀利嘅，就係咁犀利，佢直接可以管理落嚟，所以就叫我哋話：喂，你哋報導中國一定要平衡啊！咩叫平衡啊？咁啊，你反中國嘅50聲音支持中國，咁平衡咗咯。咁你知中國啲媒體奉旨唔平衡㗎啦，所以即係成個呢個滲透好犀利嘅。咁我哋都知道咧，就係反滲透咧，第一個係要中國冇錢。第二個咧係要大家公民要起身，真係啊！中國而家冇錢噶啦，咁咧就大家公民要講話，呢個係對於我嚟講係好重要啊！咁仲有一件事情關於滲透咧，我好快講一下，我知道時間唔係咁多，我就話即係我哋嘅社區群體啊，乜嘢係最壞嘅滲透？我成日都講負能量係最壞嘅滲透。我自己喺中國民運中，我睇咗咁多年啦，即係我幾十年反革命做落嚟啦嚇，你一睇咧。最大嘅問題就係大家互相捉特務，互相話邊個咧啱上個 panel 都有講啦，即係喺 YouTube 講邊個唔好啊，我好反對呢啲做法嘅，指住人哋去嗌交。點解咧？因為你要大家去睇咧，中共最犀利嘅對你，佢唔使即係好多人話啊，我擔心我啲個人信息啊，所以佢老實講啦，中共而家嗰啲網絡嗰啲咁發達啊，你乜嘢信息佢都揾到，我包你佢乜嘢都揾到。即係中共曾經就將所有美國聯邦僱員嘅資料全部偷晒，咁啊簡單啦，咁我啲資料都喺晒裏頭啦，係咪先啦？咁啊佢要偷，仲有信用卡公司佢偷晒，你乜都有，所以佢唔擔心你呢個而家大呢種即係機器，即係嗰種人工智能啊，你乜都揾到，但係佢整唔到你嘅係咩地方咧？係一種信念。你人與人之間嘅關係，你嘅團結，所以中共長期以嚟，中共以前整國民黨就係咁整噶啦。最大嘅做法就喺你嘅中間，人與人中間挑起負能量，嗰個唔啱，你個唔啱，一講咧，大家互相之間，你諗下香港人中，我原來以為香港人唔會咁犀利，後尾我發覺都幾犀利。係啊，唔係你未見過大陸人，你唔好笑啊！真係大陸人有啲犀利法，哇！捉特務捉到真係差唔多要送你去咩咁？送你去 FBI 啊！嗱，1月6號遊完行之後，成扎去即係共和黨嗰啲人全部俾自己大陸人自己喎，支持民主黨啲人報晒 FBI 喎，咁都有喎。咁所以呢種負能量係好危險嘅。而 人與人之間嗰種，即係你一個團體，你信念差唔多，你相信香港自由，你相信民主，你相信一個前途。喺呢個中間，如果自己人死咁打自己人咧，你咧中共係最啱噶。所以中共民運我咁多年見到啊，最叻嘅辦法就係整一堆負能量過嚟，唔係話揾你係整呢啲負能量。所以呢個就係好危險啊！我覺得香港人而家要特別注意啊，係咪？OK， 好多謝。
多謝。Okay, maybe we can have this open to the floor. We have a guest from Washington, D.C., and then 2 other guests here on stage. 有冇嘢下邊咧可以我哋提早去問啦？即係第一節嗰陣時，we have a very compressed time in the first session, so the question was very short. But yeah, anyone from the audience 可以俾啲 comments 都得嘅。好。
係，就我唔係好，即係我唔識問問題，不過咧，都反映下咧，譬如一路聽我都聽到話啊，即係大陸成日講佢制度自信，咁以前我唔係好明乜嘢，後嚟我而家即係聽下咧，覺得其實係嘅，即係比較起西方國家，就佢個制度自信，即係頭先阿龔博士啊。你哋幾位都講係好厲害，佢哋嗰個攻擊咧，即係甚至乎令到我哋平日同自己好老友啊、家人嘅相處咧，係即係我嘅意思即係散晒啊！我哋係完全冇還抗之力啊！即係我而家成日都諗有咩方法咧？咁頭先阿龔博士就話公民要起身，咁我哋都盡力。譬如我嚟到呢度都唔係好耐，幾個月。咁樣咧就有咩活動，我盡量出噶啦。但係仲有咩可以做到咧？即係好具體地咧，我唔知道有咩可以做到。嗱，係譬如我將會去 Calgary， 咁樣咧，我諗住都要問阿溫博士啊，喺 Calgary 有冇咩可靠嘅人？即係我哋去到咧就要報到，然後就有咩咧，即係要出席啊咁樣。咁我覺得只可以要做即係只可以做到呢啲。又見到人咧，即係我講具體地，見到啲咩朋友啊，佢淺藍嗰啲咧，好膚淺咁講，我哋都盡量講下少少，摸下佢個底，然後講得幾多，影響到幾多得幾多，即係我自己諗到可以做嘅就係呢啲。咁唔知具體地有乜嘢真係個戰略上係有幫助咁樣咯。
OK， 咁不如你頭先講 ，Yeah， well，the lady from the audience find it pretty helpless because it seems like whatever we do, there isn't really some substantial progress in terms of our fight for freedoms in general. And you're going to Calgary, right? When? So permanently or in coming 2 days? Is it permanently you're going there? Relocating. Well, contact me because there are some groups that you should connect. Paul is a good guy. I'll let you know later. Maybe I'll ask Sam. Like you have been back for 2 years. We all feel depressed about what's going on from 2019, and that we try to rebuild ourselves, and also try to be an activist of sorts. Well, I know you have been busy doing a lot of things because you spend time in prison, but how to really connect with the society and be useful. Again, I mean, it's different from banking. It's different from what you do before. Maybe that's the first question. I mean, maybe you can give us some feedback, some advice.
Yeah, and I think I've noticed too especially in the last 6 months or so, I feel like there's a bit of exhaustion among people, a bit of sort of frustration and kind of feeling that. I mean, I think some of you probably feel that too recently. I actually think we have made a lot of progress, and maybe this is because I'm used to. I grew up in the West, and I'm used to how slowly things move and how difficult it is to get Western governments to do anything, especially when there's money involved, and there's a lot of money involved in China, right? So I've actually been pleasantly surprised. Look, I tell people this a lot. You know, the Uyghur genocide started long before Hong Kong. Tibet was subdued and repressed long before Hong Kong. And it wasn't until Hong Kongers rose up in 2019 that the narrative in the West shifted against China. I mean, think about that. I mean, we all kind of forget, but think about where we were in 2018, 2017. For those of you who already lived in the West, everybody was still talking about how great it was investing in China. They were committing a genocide, right? All of that shifted in 2019 because of Hong Kong. And I think that's really important to remember. And since then, the entire narrative has shifted. So I know, there's a lot of talk about, people on one side of the aisle or the other in different countries are less hostile towards China. But the reality is left wing, right wing, center, pretty much everyone has shifted to become much more distrustful of China, much more realizing that we can't just keep on business as usual with these people. That's because of people. It's because of people doing policy work here in DC and places like that. But more than that, it's because of people speaking out. It's because of Hong Kongers speaking out in 2019, and since then, getting out on the street doing protests. I think meeting with your officials and things are important, but where I've really seen things kind of fall off in the last six to 9 months is on public demonstrations. I mean, we've got in London or in the UK like 200,000 new Hong Kongers who've come over there. In recent months, when they call big protests, they're not big. They're really small. It should be easier to get people out there. I think from what I understand from Ed, a lot of you have been in Canada for a long time. But for those, there are a lot of new arrivals too. And what I try to, emphasize to people in the UK and in Canada and in the US is, I think there's somewhat of a feeling of, oh, we just got here. We're grateful that we were able to get here. And so maybe we shouldn't push too hard. I completely disagree. For those of you who are new arrivals, this is your home now, right? And you have every right to be out there, demanding that the people who represent you make sure that you're protected from transnational repression, make sure that they're taking the stances they should be taking against the repression of Hong Kong, against the repression of the Uyghurs and things like that. It's fine to get loud. For a while there, it looked like John Lee was going to be allowed to come to San Francisco in November. And now that's not happened thanks to, the hard work of a lot of people here in HKDC and CFHK and various others who spoke out. But if that had happened, we were ready to get a bunch of Hong Kongers to San Francisco and block the doors and get people arrested the way we used to do in Hong Kong in 2019, right? And I think sometimes, a little civil disobedience, a little bit of drawing attention is kind of worth it, right? Everybody has their obligations and the amount of risk that they can take, but don't be afraid to get loud. Don't be afraid to get out there. There's always the risk of getting yourself on a list in Hong Kong, getting your families harassed. But protect your anonymity, right? If you need to, put your wear masks, get out there, get present, speak to people. And keep doing that. I know it's hard. I know that the energy it's hard to sustain, but this is always going to be a long fight. And that's and I think that's why I see our progress is actually pretty good, because I never expected this to be done in, a short period of time. But we've just got to keep at it. We could be looking at generations, right? But there's no reason to stop, and we just keep fighting, and it gives us purpose, and it gives us something really important that we're doing.
Yeah, I fully support what Sam has just said. Thank you. And I think it's important to see, you know, as community activists who have been doing this for the last 34, 40 years, we have to keep seeing it as the glass is half full, not half empty, right? And just you by being here and attending all the protest events, that's an act of resistance, right? And what we're trying to do is, you know, say, for example, the petitions that we're circulating, talk to your friends, use this as a tool to engage in other conversations. What we are trying to promote is the grassroots democracy, right? And through that grassroots democracy, through that organizing, we can hold our elected politicians accountable. They need to be transparent. They need to be accountable to us, not just the money, not just the big corporations. And I think part of that is also, you know, recognizing that United Front have all the money, as Professor Kong had said earlier, but we have the people. We have, each one of us can influence another 10 people. And that's how we build a movement. I think it's important that, lastly, I'll just say, you know, we were able to kick out, you know, to stop Confucius Institute, Hongji Hoyuan, which is, CSIS has considered it as a quasi-spy agency from China. We have been able to stop them from coming to the largest school board in Ontario, which is Toronto School Board. And I think those are, you know, yes, we need to promote and make sure we know, but also celebrate what we could achieve and fend off, you know, inch by inch. I mean, in a way, I agree with what Sam is saying. This is a long-term fight. What we are doing is we are standing on the shoulders of those who come before us. We keep on doing it to make sure our grandchildren or other generations won't have to be subject to China infiltrations and influences.
I say one sentence in English. I think the principle is that you should never be afraid of being that kid who yelled, "The emperor has no clothes." So I speak to Cantonese then. 即係我嘅意思就話咧，你千祈唔好，你唔使驚，你可以做嗰個即係叫皇帝冇着衫個細路仔。啱你講嘅制度自信啊，呢個幾有意思㗎。嗰所謂制度自信係佢講，因為佢唔自信。共產黨人冇一個對自己制度自信嘅，除咗嗰個人戇居嘅啫。即係有人問我啊，即係共產黨幾時就冇人真係信共產？話我1970年，我70年代沒入北大啊。喺北大，佢話當時北大要我揾一個共產黨啊辛苦咯，我真係揾唔到。大家都係即係我唔係嗰一批嚟㗎，所以嗰啲制度自信咧，你諗下，我從17歲開始做反革命啦，我就係即係人哋問我點做，我純屬戇居先做嘅，因為佢係冇着衫啫，又係冇啫，咁啊講完你係反革命，梗係唔瞓啦，因為我講嘅係事實，我眼見到嘢嚟㗎嘛。咁其實好多嘢咧，你即係我真係50年做反革命啦，咁你一路咧就我自己嘅感覺就係共產黨啊，不管佢睇落去幾自信啊，喺某一個地方某一步，一個人一件事情就可能將佢即係喺呢連串嘅事件啊，專制政權就冧。你諗下，即係白紙運動係咁得幾個人攞張白紙出街冇第樣嘅啫，佢唔講第樣㗎，係張白紙，你自己解釋啦，一解釋就去。你嗰啲好戇居啲嘢，大家都見到啲嘢夠幾戇居。嗱，我再講遠啲咁多，清皇朝點樣冧嘅？武昌起義係咁好細一群士兵啫，最後揾完人都冇人揾嚟做總統，床下底拉咗個黎元洪出嚟做總統。嗰個即係睇落去咁強大啲勢力啊，咁快就能夠倒。你如果見下共產黨，你見下共產黨咁，我真係見到佢100年歷史啦。你再睇下蘇聯冧嗰時點冧嘅？我專門有課，大家有興趣去聽我講，即係我採訪咗好多呢啲人，真係到時話大家話唔聽咁咪冧咗㗎啦，真係啊！所以咧，即係每一個人你想有咩作用喺 想做咩咧？千祈唔好驚，但你自己感覺到個事實，你可以就話佢冇着衫，你就叫出嚟佢冇着衫。好多成熟嗰啲人咧，其實係驚嘅話，大家計下哇，唔好講話係咪我傻啊？佢冇着衫，我叫出嚟，即係制度咁自信，其實唔係㗎。你相信自己嘅眼睛，相信其他人眼睛，同其他人講，同大眾講，同個個都講冇着衫，就係咁啦。而家習近平就係冇着衫。
OK， 台下嘅嘉賓們，最後3-4分鐘啦。好。
Thank you, everybody. My comment is, if you want to do anything, the simplest thing is to communicate with your MP, your local MP. You bring your attention to your MP. In Canada, we call that Member of Parliament, MP. So if you know any suspicious organization like Chinese particular community service, please report to your MP, and they will know, and you let them take the responsibility of handling that. Thank you.
我想問下龔博士嘅，你頭先提到咧話，CCP 好中意喺啲組織入邊發放負能量，其實係真嘅，即係無論係政治組織或者係公民組織，即係你有翻咁上下 size， 佢就會揾人滲透嘅。但係你就話，即係似乎我唔知有冇 get 錯個 understanding， 就係即係我哋就唔係 focus 喺呢一樣嘢，或者即係我想請教你究竟點樣做？當喺組織入邊真係我哋真係 smell 到，或者甚至乎幾 confirm 係有 CCP 滲透嘅時候，如果我哋係唔處理嘅話，其實佢喺入邊可以做好多嘢，可以分化啦，可以即係當然有啲係冇用嘅，即係只係索料上嚟睇下你做咩啫。有啲可能真係會搞分化，或者搞好多其他唔同嘅嘢，令到即係個組織係function唔到啦，或者係做嘅嘢俾佢哋即係喺個即係大家對弈嘅狀態嘅時候，其實佢就會即係 attack 即係你個組織做嘅嘢啦。但係即係根據你嘅經驗或者係你有咩建議，即係遇到呢啲咁嘅情況，我哋又可以 conserve 我哋嗰啲嘅 effort， 應該 focus 做啲乜嘢？係咪完全唔理佢哋啊？定係可以點樣去deal with 即係呢啲真係有滲透嘅情況咧？唔該。
你唔理佢唔得嘅，唔理佢就搗亂噶啦。你 confront 有好多嘢咧，你要真係要當面講。其實中國人好多啲組織裏頭嗰啲親中嗰啲人咧，佢自己知道冇乜道理噶，佢私下做好多嘢咧。你即係有句廣州人講，唔知香港人講唔講，叫你反面我反底。哦，香港人唔講噶嗬，即係意思咩咧？你喺中間做呢啲所有事情咧，我咧就將所有啲即係底牌反出嚟啊！所以廣州人講你反面我反底嘛。咁其實就係個意思就係你一定要 confront。即係你要做到咩？即係我經驗啊，民運組織成日出呢啲問題就係咁啦。好多嘢咧公開講完就冇事噶，咁唔係話去打交。咁不如有個 panel 開會，有個咩剩，大家將個觀點講出嚟。凡係做嗰啲嘢啲人咧，佢唔講得出嗰啲觀點噶，或者係亂咁噏噶，佢唔面對得事實噶，事實觀點。咁就係嘅，咁有時群眾組織，你話華人社團咁，你又唔趕得出去啊！特別係我知道華盛頓最犀利呢啲人咧，大使館啊，中國大使館半分鐘啊，即係次國慶請人嗰時咧，佢真係請260幾個組織過去嘅喎，咁犀利喎！呢啲人係有錢嗰啲來源咧，所以有時唔係咁容易對付，因為大家要退約咁即係大家要知道咯，特別係一啲你有啲政治目的嘅組織咧，就唔好俾佢哋 take over 啦，就係咁啦。
I want to say thank you to all our guests today, Sam, Sasha, and also Winnie, and especially for Sam. Next year, I hope you can come up to Toronto to attend the World Hong Kong Forum. Thank you for everyone. Thank you.